Let's jump right into this explainer and shatter a huge, frankly exhausting illusion right off the bat. The framework we're looking at today argues that if you're grinding day in and day out, but your bank account is just stubbornly sitting there, not growing, well, your income actually isn't capped by the market. It's capped by a completely flawed operating system. Today, we're breaking down this exact blueprint to see why working harder, like literally just sweating more, might actually be the very thing keeping you broke. We're going to explore a really fascinating strategy for compounding your income, and it all starts with fundamentally, completely rewiring how you view your daily effort.
And this perfectly illustrates the ultimate paradigm shift we need to talk about. The source material contrasts what it calls the freelancer hustle with operator architecture. Let's be honest, the freelancer hustle is where most people live, right? You're trading your hours for dollars, but mathematically, that guarantees a hard stop on your wealth. You only have so many hours in a day, which slaps an absolute ceiling on what you can earn. Operator architecture, on the other hand, asks you to step back and think like an architect, not a laborer. The whole idea is to build a solid system once and then let that system do the heavy lifting for you. Trading hours will just leave you exhausted, whereas routing systems, that's designed to guarantee compounding growth.
So here's the core argument. Willpower is finite. It really is. For most of us, it's completely depleted by lunch. So trying to smash through your income ceiling with just, another messy to-do list, it's just not going to work. That 5K a month ceiling that traps so many talented people is actually completely artificial. To break through it, this framework insists we have to shift from grinding to routing, basically creating a documented sequence that runs perfectly well even when you're not in the room. The premise is actually pretty stark. It says if your business breaks the second you take a day off, you don't actually own an architecture. You just have a really, really demanding job. Now, this entire philosophy builds up to a very specific strategy called the 4-move wealth protocol. And don't worry, this isn't some abstract pie-in-the-sky theory. It's presented as a precise, actionable architecture to permanently elevate your income. The idea is that wealth compounds through 4 sequential moves. First, aggressively filtering out the noise. Second, stacking complementary skills so you become a category of one. Third, completely changing your pricing model to focus on outcomes. And fourth, routing your capital with ruthless efficiency. Let's actually break these down one by one.
Okay, step 1 is brutal filtering. They call it productize or perish. What this means is transforming all that chaotic, bespoke, custom work into fixed scope offers. Why? Because custom work resets your month to 0 every single time. It's exhausting. Instead, the goal is to design an offer that solves a severe, urgent, what they call a bleeding neck pain point for your client. If the problem you're solving isn't causing severe pain, the protocol literally tells you to walk away and protect your capital. The entire focus here is building the solution once and then selling it over and over again.
Moving on to step 2, we get into skill stacking. Having just one skill, sure, it makes you employable, but it also keeps you entirely replaceable. If you want to become completely irreplaceable and establish yourself as the absolute market standard, the source recommends stacking 3 complementary skills. Just imagine pairing a creative skill, like copywriting, with a logic skill, let's say data analysis, and finally a scale skill, like automation. That specific intersection is so incredibly rare. The framework argues that when you operate right at that intersection, you don't even have to ask for premium pricing anymore. You just command it.
Which brings us perfectly to step 3. The guiding principle here is to price outcomes, not hours. Think about it. Hourly billing is actually a trap that punishes efficiency. If you get faster and better at your job, you literally make less money. That makes no sense. Pricing based on guaranteed outcomes, however, aligns your value directly with the client's actual results. When you can guarantee a specific outcome, like lead velocity for example, it locks in long-term retention. And in this game, a recurring retainer is going to beat a one-off 30-day project every single time.
Now, step 4 is where things get really analytical. It details the exact mathematical routing of your capital. Operating on this mantra that revenue is vanity, but retention is sanity, the routing grid is super strict. It breaks down like this. 40% goes right back into operations just to keep the machine running smoothly. 30% goes into skill acquisition because your mental software constantly needs upgrading. 20% goes into building cash-flowing assets. And that final 10%, that builds a personal runway to shield you against any unexpected emergencies.
But to make that routing actually work, your metrics have to change. If you're obsessing over monthly invoices, your business is going to stay stuck in survival mode, always chasing that next quick hit. Tracking lifetime value, or LTV, instead of those individual invoices fundamentally shifts your entire posture. It instantly stops the desperate chase for new, low-quality clients. Instead, you start treating your existing clients as long-term partners, which is exactly what allows your existing wealth to truly compound over time.
Now, implementation is almost always where these high-level concepts hit a bottleneck, right? You get the theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, for those of you looking to install these specific systems and metrics right now, without the headache of building them all from scratch, the creators of this framework offer the Wealth Mastery Blueprint. It really is the obvious, definitive shortcut if you are totally ready to stop grinding and start routing immediately. We've actually linked it right down in the description below, so you can just grab it and explore their exact architecture for yourself.
All right, diving back into the explainer. And this leverage architecture, to truly scale your output, you have to remove yourself from the actual fulfillment process. You just have to. And you do this by templating every single piece of friction. The proposed workflow is beautifully simple. Client brief, template application, and automated delivery. Literally, every repeatable task needs a template. By turning chaotic, sweaty effort into a predictable output, an operator can automate the handoff and just massively multiply their margin.
But to fuel this automated machine, you absolutely have to protect your cognitive capital. Redlining your brain for 8 straight hours a day, that totally kills high-level strategic thinking. So the framework suggests a mandatory rhythm. It's 90 minutes of absolute, uncompromising deep work, followed immediately by 45 minutes of true recovery. And by true recovery, they mean no casually checking emails or scrolling on your phone, just genuine mental rest. Then you repeat the cycle. This is exactly how elite operators avoid burnout while actively doubling their output.
And this is exactly why silencing the noise is so absolutely critical. The text argues, quite convincingly, that fractured attention will always yield a fractured income. Think about it. Working 60 scattered hours a week, constantly jumping between social media, emails, and client work, that will consistently lose to someone working just 30 intensely focused hours. Amplified focus will outperform a scattered hustle every single time. In fact, guarding those peak cognitive hours is treated as an absolute, non-negotiable prerequisite for establishing financial freedom.
So, this ultimate shift from laborer to owner, it is not about sweating more. While traditional advice always equates hard work with success, this architecture focuses entirely on measuring your results rather than your physical effort. It's all about documenting a successful sequence, deploying it, and then just letting the systems compound over time. It embraces the very real fact that human willpower absolutely fades, but a well-built system, that compounds by design.
To really put this into perspective, the source shares an incredible case study about a guy named David. He was previously stuck at roughly $3,800 a month, feeling completely overwhelmed. But by installing this exact architecture, meaning he dropped his low-retention clients, stacked complementary skills, and started pricing for outcomes, his revenue skyrocketed to $10,000 a month in just 90 days. That transformation didn't happen because he worked harder. It happened because he started routing smarter.
But honestly, what makes David's story so stand out is the time commitment. He works just 28 hours per week to achieve that $10K a month revenue. No way, right? By relying on a documented architecture instead of just guessing every day, he achieved much higher margins with significantly fewer hours. The system quite literally allowed him to eliminate his burnout and reclaim his time, all while maximizing his overall profit.
Now, the source is completely transparent about this. The first 30 days of making this transition will feel uncomfortable. It just will. In week 1, your focus shifts to filtering. In week 2, you're stacking those skills. Learning to say no to quick, easy cash during this time is essentially the necessary tax you pay for upgrading your business model. By week 4, the focus lands entirely on routing capital and tracking your qualification rates, rather than just cheering about how many random inbound emails you got. The entire goal is to stop desperately chasing and start selectively choosing.
And you really don't have to reinvent the wheel to achieve this trajectory shift. The creators compiled all these specific tools into their blueprint, so you have everything you need from day one. It includes the complete framework PDF, that brilliant 30-skill matrix designed to make you completely irreplaceable, an income tracker, and the exact automation tech stack required to remove yourself from the fulfillment process entirely. Basically, the tools to build your own architecture are handed to you as a complete package.
So, the ultimate thesis here really boils down to a choice between guesswork and architecture. Guesswork is presented as the fast track to pure stagnation. It keeps operators trapped as replaceable laborers who are constantly stressed out about where next month's rent is coming from. The blueprint, however, is offered as the bridge to compounding leverage. It's about installing the exact pricing architecture designed to effortlessly command premium retainers in 90 days or less.
I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought from the framework. Everything in a business is deployable if you have the right system. Freedom isn't luck, it is architecture. If you're ready to stop relying on hope and exhausting hustle, and you want to install these systems for yourself, the Wealth Mastery Blueprint is the obvious next step. The link is right there in the description below. Grab it and let it do the heavy lifting. It leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder, doesn't it? Are the income limits we face simply the result of the market, or are we literally just using the wrong blueprint?